definitely not my approach as a leader to approach with so much brash confidence that I had at 2 years old. But I definitely am that 2 year old inside. And that 2 year old inside has motivated me to, be a dropout in college and go home and get on my feet. And that was really a hard decision to leave in my junior year at Howard University because I had whole aspirations for my life as a cultural anthropologist. And that didn't work out that way. And so I came home and bootstrapped it, as they say, and figured it out. And makeup called to me. I was like dreaming about it. And so, I woke up one day from a dream that I had that I was sitting on Oprah's couch and I was having an interview with her, and she's like playing a reel of like a sizzle reel of, so to speak, of my life experiences and accolades. And, I woke up and said, oh my gosh, I think I'm supposed to be a makeup artist.
Welcome to the Leadership Launchpad Project, changing the way the game is played. This podcast helps purpose-driven leaders unlock their highest potential so that they can play their biggest impact game. Welcome to the Leadership Launchpad Project, changing the way this game is being played. We are so fired up for this interview. We had to hit record. We were having so much fun off this mic, and we knew we had to bring some of that fun on the mic. And so it is my pleasure to introduce you all to our guest today. She is fierce and she is fabulous, and her name is Ashunta Sheriff Kendricks, and she is an esteemed figure in the beauty industry with over 2 decades of experience as a pioneering makeup artist. She is the founder of Ashunta Sheriff Beauty, a brand focused on clean, progressive beauty solutions for everyone. Her career is marked by collaboration with major brands like Dior and Armani Beauty, and she has worked with celebrities such as Zendaya and Rihanna, and also starting to do male grooming for icons like Jay-Z, whom we all recognize. I also want to highlight that Ashunta expanded her expertise across the gender and color spectrum. She is known for her commitment to inclusivity, diversity, and empowering women in the industry. I can't wait to talk about that with her. Ashunta is dedicated to mentoring new talent and has received Emmy and Black Reel Award nominations for her work in television and film. So this is absolutely going to bring the heat today. I'm so excited to dig into some of your backstory, Ashunta. Welcome to the pod, girl.
Welcome.
Welcome. I'm happy to be here. Super happy to be here with you.
I feel like the place we got to start is this amazing story that you were sharing with us off the mic when we asked, has this always been an aspiration of yours to really ascend into positions of leadership, to be the founder of your own business? And where did that inspiration start for you in your backstory?
I would say, Susan, picking up right from where we were, it started for me as a child. And I know there's a quote, leaders are made, not born, but I think that, there are some that are born too. And it goes back to me being 2 years on a terrace. My family was new to an apartment complex in Harlem called Schomburg Plaza. And we had terraces. Basically, my neighbor next door was smoking a cigarette. And I was like 2 years old, but I talked really well, my mom said. For 2 years old, I was doing full sentences and reading at that point. And she said I came onto the balcony and I like had no shirt on with like a training pan or something with a bottle. And I like take my bottle out and I have my hand on my hip and I'm like, that's bad for you, talking about her cigarette. And she looks over at me like, are you talking to me, little girl? And I'm like, yeah, I'm talking to you. And she's like, what's your name? And I'm like, my name's Ashunta. You should know my name, and when I hear these stories, they make me crack up because that's definitely not my approach as a leader to approach with so much brash confidence that I had at 2 years old. But I definitely am that 2 year old inside. And that 2 year old inside has motivated me to, be a dropout in college and go home and get on my feet. And that was really a hard decision to leave in my junior year at Howard University because I had whole aspirations for my life as a cultural anthropologist. And that didn't work out that way. And so I came home and bootstrapped it, as they say, and figured it out. And makeup called to me. I was like dreaming about it. And so, I woke up one day from a dream that I had, that I was sitting on Oprah's couch and I was having an interview with her, and she's like playing a reel of, like, a sizzle reel of, so to speak, of my life experiences and accolades. And I woke up and said, "Oh my gosh, I think I'm supposed to be a makeup artist." And my daughter's father, who I'm definitely not with, I'm not married to him at all. um
At all.
at all, loser. Sorry.
Uh-oh.
Sorry, but just say it. I don't hold it back. But bottom line is, he was like, "Well, that's all you can be." He literally said, "Well, that's all you can be." And so
No, he
he
poured
he has no.
gasoline on that fire, didn't he?
Yeah, so I really leaned into that because he said, "Hey, that's all I can be. Well, I'm going to be the best damn makeup artist there is." And so that's where the 2-year-old brash little girl in me pushes through in those moments of adversity to become a leader.
Mhm.
And in terms of getting to a place of having a brand, I had become a leader in this beauty space because I've been doing this 3 decades. It's a long time. And
Mhm.
sometimes you're not really even looking to be a leader in your space. You're just working kind of mindlessly, not looking to the left or right, and just, you don't even know you're breaking down doors. You don't know you're the first Black person to do this. You don't even know you're the first woman to do that. You don't know you're breaking these barriers. You're just doing it because I love what I do. I love doing makeup. I literally said that to my husband the other day. I was like, I still love doing makeup and I love making women feel beautiful. I love the feeling of when they see the mirror for the first time and they're just like, I'm so excited. And that has been always the baseline for me as a makeup artist. That's been a driving force. And that's the driving force in the beauty brand. And so, in terms of leading, I lead as that brash 2-year-old, but there's with so much, like, I would say, humility and gratitude and really nurturing and shaping young talent, so that they're prepared for the industry in a better way than I was when I came into it. So self acceptance is a huge part, I believe, of leadership. And
Mhm.
if that's a struggle for you as a leader, then that's what you have to. That's got to be in your wheelhouse of work for work. I got to self love because sometimes people are on a journey, right, to become wealthy, to change their family's life trajectory, to change your friend's life, to pay all your debts down. And those are all great reasons, right? But where are you in that equation? You have to also enjoy not just the journey to success, but the success itself. We see all too many people get success and are miserable and depressed. They're
Mhm.
billionaires and lonely and unhappy.
Mhm.
So we have to understand that that level of happiness is something that is daily work.
So it's interesting. It sounds like you were already really kind of clued into the self-leadership piece in terms of waking up in college and realizing that you were on the wrong path and being able to, follow what your true passion was and persevere in spite of the challenge that you first challenge anyway that you mentioned. So when did you start to clue into the fact that you were in fact a leader for others?
Mhm.
Well, that really started too from a young age. I mean, most of my teachers from grade school were always telling my parents, Ashunta's a leader, Ashunta's a leader. I could get the kids to do everything, like, and not in a manipulative way, like if it was for something right, if I felt like super passionate about something, you damn well know the whole class was going to hear my mouth about it. And I was not going to stop talking about it. And I was going to have a whole fit about it. And so, that pushed me to being, head of classes, presidents of student bodies. And so that was happening from a very young age. In junior high school, I was president of student body, high school, president of student body, and, going to boarding preparatory school. I got a full scholarship from ninth to 12th grade. That's where I played ice hockey at Tabor Academy. Hey,
Oh my
Steve.
God, we played against each other. I went to boarding school in New Hampshire,
Okay,
Holderness.
where did you go?
Holderness.
Okay, yes, we definitely
We
played
had
against
Tabor
Holderness.
Day. We used to
Yes,
have
Wow.
Tabor Day.
yeah,
I
the
remember.
Holderness was a big competitor of ours in the
That's
in
right.
female ice hockey space.
That's right.
I think I'm older than you though, so I think
Wow.
I'm in my 50s.
Okay, maybe,
Yeah,
but just
so
a little.
I'm gonna rub it in your face a little bit. When my in my era we had the championships, so
Yeah. I remember.
So, but see, that's the leader in me. Like I'm a
Yeah,
competitive person.
I love
I have
it.
like such a, I always say to people, I have like almost a very devious, like childish smile, but in there is like an athlete who's like really
Mhm.
serious.
I can
So
see her. I totally see her.
she's gonna win.
I
She's
wouldn't
gonna
want to go
win.
against you on the ice, girl. I'm
Oh
not
yeah,
gonna
she's gonna
lie.
win. She's gonna win. And so, basically that it was starting all the way from that time, even down to, when they were did an open call for ice hockey. All the black kids really being transparent. Everybody was going to play basketball, literally, and I didn't know how to shoot hoop at all. I could not shoot hoop. I'm not coordinated with a ball and dribbling and running at the same time. I was always falling. I've probably learned how to play more basketball as an adult now because I'm in a basketball house, with my husband balling, my kids balling. But me, I'm terrible. But I was always good at ice skating. I grew up in
Mm.
Harlem, and right where I grew up, there was a skating rink. And so that was our backyard. That's where we went to play as kids in Harlem. We went, school field trips to the Alaska rink, which is still there at 110th Street. It's right there in 110th and Lenox Avenue. If you ever visit Central Park,
I
please
know where
visit
that
the
is.
Alaska rink.
Mm.
But that's where, we learned how to skate. And so even down to, that I went and got on the ice and started skating. And the coach was like kind of surprised, honestly. He was like, where did you learn how to skate?
I love it.
And it was like it was like really like an anomaly, it's so crazy to think I'm 51 years old and to think, I was this 14-year-old Black girl from Harlem, and they saw kids get out for free skating, for like regular ice skating day or whatever, but to actually come and play, he was like really taken back. And he said, where'd you learn how to skate? And I said, I've never played ice hockey before. I said, but I was like, I'm aggressive. I danced my whole life. I'm very physical. And I was like, and I know how to skate. I said, so I feel like it takes coordination and knowing how to skate in this way. And he was like, okay. And he did some drills and I was able to keep up. So I played JV. And then my sophomore year, they started swinging me between JV and varsity. And then I was a full varsity junior year. And, just those things for me are like where I really know that I showed leadership because I was the
Oh
first
yeah.
to do something, like in
Mhm.
my school's history.
That's what I want to dig into so much. I just read on, I can't remember if it was LinkedIn, but Forbes did some research in and around 80% of Fortune 500 female CEOs have a backstory in athletics, and usually to a high level. So this is what I'm seeing embedded in your story, even from the get, in terms of that sassy 2-year-old. But I think is like, there's a certain confidence that comes, right, with playing athletics, and also you being able to go and break barriers and not even second guess that you could do it, even though it had never been done before. You certainly had never done the sport before.
Yeah.
Let's
I
break
mean,
that down for
Yeah.
people because
It's like it's the willingness to put yourself out
out
there.
there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I think for me, it's like, okay, no one did it before. So what? Like I never looked at myself, I think, in the way that I think a typical young Black woman would look at herself in Harlem. Like if I compared myself to my peers, their parents and it's not that my parents weren't telling me very similar um, information in terms of get a college education, get a master's degree, even work harder, and that's going to lead to more success,
Mhm.
and that's what you see with Black women. You read about it all the time in terms of Black women in leadership in
Mhm.
in the business world as well. It's a lot of hard work, right, that's been put into anybody making it happen. But we always hear that we have to work twice as hard as women, and Black women have
Mhm.
to work like 3 times as hard, right? So
Mhm.
I just never kind of had that mentality. And it's not because I didn't see myself as Black. It's because I always saw myself first as a human being. I've always seen myself as that since a kid.
Mhm.
Even when people would say things to me in an all white predominant school, things that would seem offensive to people. I had one guy told me, never forget, he said, I've never knew any Black kids before. You're the first Black person that I've ever been cool with. And, he said, it's really refreshing to know that you guys are really cool people. And it was just kind of like, this is 1992,
Whew.
this is not
Mm.
1962.
Right.
Mhm.
And, just how separate people grow. up, and how much false information is given to you, right? So
Mhm,
what did my parents do differently? My parents never really put color down my throat. They never
mhm,
did. They made me aware, I think, more so when I became a teenager and I started experiencing things as a Black woman in the world. But
mhm.
they didn't taint me, I think, from 7 and 8 and 9 to limit myself. And I think that can be very daunting right now with what we see happening in the world, right? With what's happening with um, everything, with our administration and with law
Mhm,
and with history trying to be changed. And, you
mhm.
know, everybody's trying to hold on to the piece of something right now in the world. And I think leadership is even more important, even in a beauty brand, than ever before,
Mhm.
because it's not just that you're just leading a beauty brand, you're also raising up the next generation of leaders, corporate leaders as well. So,
Mhm,
I think of all of those things in terms of how I played sports,
mhm.
and how I applied myself, and just never saw that I couldn't do it. I just
This
never
is
saw that.
this is everything to us as coaches who spend our day job in the trenches, especially with our female leaders, trying to break down those internal barriers, those limited beliefs and perspectives and biases that they've inherited from the narratives of the previous generations.
And
You know,
and I
we were talking off air just in terms of how we're trying to really evolve out of this whole old school power over style of leadership that clearly just doesn't work and certainly does not engage the upcoming future talent that's coming
yeah,
behind our back shoulder, right? But this is what I want to talk about, because obviously from a very young age, your parents, they were high performance coaches,
they
okay? Like
were, they
they knew how
were,
to
and
awaken that power
I want to
within.
tell the audience that, because
Mm-hmm.
I think that's important, and I pour into my kids the same way. My
Mm-hmm.
mom always, she's very Louise Hay. She really was,
I love
Mhm.
her.
and she was like that, I think, because she was a creative. And
Mhm.
Mm.
because she was already in the arts and hanging
Mhm.
with really
Mhm.
high profile artists, she was doing what I was doing, but in her era. But she wasn't a makeup artist. She was just the cool kid hanging with people, in the
Mhm.
club, in the right place with the right people. And I
Mhm.
think that made her, um, coming from a rural Mississippi. She comes from a small town with like not even 30,000 people. And she moved to New York City. The gumption that she must have had, right, to
Right.
believe in herself, to come through Chicago, to come to New York with no family there, live on her own.
Mhm.
And also then further believe that she can make it on Broadway, make it as a singer,
Mhm.
like that type of gumption, I think, is what she instilled in me to not limit myself, because she definitely didn't limit herself. This is someone who picked cotton, literally. She
Mm.
Mhm.
literally picked
Mhm.
cotton.
Wow.
And not, but not out of, force. My grandparents had a farm. So,
Mhm.
post Reconstruction era in, the South, a lot of people who ended up with property post slavery, like my grandparents did, they had almost 200 acres of land, I think, total on my grandfather's side. And so that's also where the leadership comes from. It comes
Mhm.
right from,
Really.
the grandparents who were
Mhm.
property owners, who had a farm, who were entrepreneurial, who sold eggs, chickens, cattle, but taught their kids this, way of life, farm life. And so
Mhm.
my mom had to pick cotton, tend the farm, slay the hogs, jelly the jam. She did all the things,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and then left that behind and moved to New York in 1969, which she says is the best summer ever.
Mhm. I can
I've heard
imagine.
that.
I
We've
mean,
all heard that.
summer of
Something
love,
about
right?
Studio
Yeah.
60,
Summer of
60.
love,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
But that's all of what she kind of put into me, which is that magical feeling of, I can make it, right? I can
Mm.
go to New York with a dream and
Mm.
make it. And that's the thing she put in me. I really can say that. And one of the other things that can help anybody, I think, trying to find their footing with leadership is knowing that your words have power. Your actual words you speak out of your mouth about yourself have power. And so we have training, that we have to break. Money doesn't grow on trees. You have to take
Mhm.
away those kinds of thoughts, or, this is so expensive. We have to cut back making those kind of statements, which seem logical because maybe you are bootstrapping and struggling as a brand financially. I understand that all too well, but in order to bring that money to you, money begets money. It's an energetic feeling, and it's an actual term they call currency. It's a current that actually works in that same energetic way. And so we have to align our minds mentally, to know that if we want to get to a place of leadership, and if it acquires a certain path of resistance, so to speak, that we can't see our ways through, we have to start with our mind. We have to unclear the mind and start seeing it physically, like closing our eyes every morning, before I get out of the bed. I have always prayed before I got out of bed, but now, I'm re-implementing. I always kind of revisit Louise Hay, and I always revisit like, um, uh, it's on the tip of my tongue, but it's another amazing, it's not The Secret, but they like created The Secret. They're like behind the whole secret, and they're an older couple, and it'll come to me by the end of this podcast. But they have an amazing book series. And I always revisit it. I feel like, once a year around this springtime where things are sprouting, it's time to reignite that entrepreneurial spirit in me. It's time to reignite that fire in me. It's time to reignite my leadership. I will revisit those things and reset my mind, because it's all, a lot of it is on our mind, and we have so much limiting beliefs. I just said something to someone the other day. I was like, oh my gosh, she's so beautiful. You can easily become an influencer. And she said, I don't feel that way. She
Mm,
said, I don't feel that way. Now, if you saw this woman who's a ageless beauty, who's 45 plus, who's a former model, stunning and gorgeous, but she doesn't view herself that way because she's still caught in her, how she felt as a younger person when she modeled. Now she's mature modeling, but she still sees, that
Mhm.
19-year-old girl model. And it's a shame that, we get locked into that. So
mm,
I said to her, I said, well, you've got to start doing the mental clearing and looking at who you are now, not just seeing who you once were, but who you've become. Like every line on your face, every place you've aged, anything that sagged and drooped or whatever. This is all you've earned. These are chin
mm,
straps. Like you've earned these marks. And whether you decide to lay under a table or not, or get shots, whatever it is, or do nothing, you have to see you clearly, because even if you do that stuff, it won't take away if you don't see who you really are. Like, it's the weirdest thing. And I see it with celebrities, like
Mhm.
you can get work done, but it can't undo what you don't see if you don't accept it. So self-acceptance is a huge part, I believe, of leadership. And
mhm,
if that's a struggle for you as a leader, then that's what you have to, that's got to be in your wheelhouse of work for work. I got to self-love, because sometimes people are on a journey, right, to become wealthy, to change their family's life trajectory, to change your friend's life, to pay all your debts down. And those are all great reasons, right? But where are you in that equation? You have to
Mhm.
also enjoy not just the journey to success, but the success itself. We see all too many people get success and are miserable and depressed. They're
mhm,
billionaires and lonely and unhappy.
mhm,
So we have to understand that that level of happiness is something that is daily work. We have to daily work on that and not feel guilty when we're blessed, because maybe we see others don't. That also is a big thing that looms over us, especially anybody who's Christian,
mhm,
especially anyone who's Catholic. We get really sad if we're growing,
Mhm.
and we're getting and others don't have. It's like, oh, why is this happening to me? And that becomes also self-sabotagery, for you, in terms of the abundance that the universe
Mhm.
has for you. So I'm a very abundance thinker, and that's what helps me in leadership. I'm also an introvert extrovert, which I think a lot
mm,
of leaders are, which means that, I can do really well, like right now, inspire people. But when I finish, I've got to go reprieve and regroup and probably reset, because I too have also a lot of those things that are cultural things, or systemic things that I fight against, because I'm human as well.
mhm.
Mhm.
I feel like you
Well,
just led a masterclass on
I was going to
mindset.
say,
I'm a
and it's a
talker. I'm
and
so
it's a
sorry.
wrap
I'm also
right
a
there.
talker.
Mic drop.
Yeah, so I found it so interesting. You were talking about self-acceptance as being part of leadership, and you mentioned also abundance, and that really beautifully led right into
Mm.
my question, which was going to be, so what does leadership mean for you within the beauty industry? Like obviously those are a couple of principles that you've already mentioned, but is there anything else that you would say if you look back on your leadership journey, let's say from the very beginning to where you are now, that you feel would be important to draw attention to?
Absolutely. I have another story because I think people learn through
Yep.
storytelling.
Amen.
And when I became, this big highfalutin makeup artist, not that I saw myself as that, but once I was like really with Alicia Keys, I'd
Mhm.
been with her for maybe about 2 years at this time. We'd done a movie, we'd done a tour, a world tour at that part, at that time. And this was the first time she was attending Cannes Film Festival. She was wearing Dolce Gabbana, and it was this beautiful like ocean kind of turquoise blue jacket over this lemon beautiful yellow like jumpsuit two-piece type thing. It was really stunning, and her stylist put her in it, and I was inspired to really play off of these colors and put it into her eye makeup because I love color. I started as a self-taught makeup artist, and my real passion is acting, dancing, and that's what I went to junior high school and high school for. So I was always a theater kid and then playing the sports and stuff, so really groomed to kind of become an actress. So that's like where my mom thought I would go, right? But that didn't happen. um and I'm so happy that didn't happen. But anyway, so I did this makeup look, and then Italian Vogue, covered Cannes beauty looks. And they have this beautiful picture of Alicia, and she's on the red carpet, and there they have it, makeup no, a makeup no, all caps. And then the beauty editor goes on to write, Alicia Keys, makeup artist, can't stay out of the Crayola crayon box. Clearly she doesn't understand, yeah, that I didn't understand basically the
Mhm.
assignment or something. It wasn't that language because
Oh
we didn't say
no.
understand it,
Them's
but I didn't
fighting
understand
words.
what I should have.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, the first thing, when I took it to Alicia, because I was, mortified first off, because I know her PR looks at all of these press pieces. I didn't want to be like, oh my gosh, I could lose my job. This is a first bad write up, like I got very nervous, and, beauty writers don't even understand like the power they can hold sometimes, over a makeup artist job when they do those makeup knows and don'ts. And I understand I've had a few of them. I've had a few of them because I do believe everybody has a bad day, with
Mhm.
makeup. It's not never, no one's
Not a
ever
perfect
scored.
science.
Yeah,
We
no one
know
has a
that as
perfect season.
women.
Yeah, no one has a perfect season every year, day
No.
in and out. It doesn't
Yeah.
happen. And so I've had a few bad moments. And so this was like my first one with her. So I was nervous. And I went to her about it and I talked to her about it. And, her response was just so cool as she is. She was like, did you like it? And I said, I loved it. It was beautiful. And she said, I loved it. She's like, and I really don't care what they felt. She was like, F 'em, in her very Alicia Keys,
Mm-hmm.
please go see her musical on Broadway when you come to New York. But,
Mm.
Hell's Kitchen way, just giving it to you straight. And I was like, here she is at this time, a multi Grammy award winning artist, second album, we're on world tours, you know, still so down to earth and really just was understood me because we're from the same neighborhood. We get color, we get vibrancy. If you grow up in Spanish Harlem, if you grow up in New York City, if you grow up in Hell's Kitchen, it's very colorful. It's graffiti everywhere. Back in my day, especially even before Alicia, you go to Times Square, it was hookers everywhere, and you saw prostitutes everywhere, and literally, and that was fun for us growing up, watching people walk the stroll. It was colorful. It was very, very colorful, and it creates really different kind of kids who are kids like me and Alicia who were able to kind of look at what's happening like almost from a fishbowl lens, not being involved in this stuff but yet of it,
Mm-hmm.
and and it makes you really have this juxtaposition of my life could go that way very easy, and so you really get on your P's and Q's and you keep your A's up and you do the best you can in school and you get the best grades and you be a leader because you don't want that demise. You don't want that as your predicament. So, I would say definitely um her saying that just really kind of eased the pain, but then it emboldened me to keep using color. And as you can see in
Mm-hmm.
my makeup line, I'm bringing it full circle now. I have these neon mascaras, which are UV. They glow under black light, and they're just highly pigmented mascara. You can even layer them with black mascara. They look beautiful, and you'll get like little accents of pink or purple or yellow, whatever color you vibrate with. But I put them in the line to always remind myself to be my truest self. You
Hmm.
know,
Mm.
even when people, I gave these away for free when I did Good Morning America Deals and Steals. I gave them away to tons of people. I had people write me saying, "You sent me a neon mascara," angry.
Oh,
And
what?
I would have to write them and say, you know, that their order was on back order and they're angry about the back order, but they're angry, but you sent me this mascara. I didn't ask for this. And then as soon as I say them, I said, you know, we're sorry about the back order. Your order is going to ship, but that's a free item that we gifted you. And we created these mascaras because, and I put in quotes, Ashunta holds color very, very near and dear to her heart, and hopes that you always approach life with the innocence of a child, because
Mm.
that's really like how we should lead our lives, you know, like with the innocence of a child. Why should a neon green mascara make you angry? You know, if
Right?
anything, should make you go, this is interesting, this is
Mhm.
different, you know, and maybe try it by yourself when no one's looking. You know, it may not be a part of your everyday thing, but there's a neon party coming up. Trust me, I hear about
Yeah,
them all the time. You know,
right?
there's a festival coming, there's a bowling championship, your daughter has a soccer game at night, something, there's a moment when we can put this neon mascara on. And so you see, that's where the leadership comes in. So, you
Totally.
know, bringing it all the way into the makeup line to show ageless beauties 40 and up that we can have bold product. We can wear whatever the F we want. We can play still, you know. And there's a funny thing that the younger generation I read, sorry, said that they don't connect with Mac, which is so deep to me because, you know, Mac is my generation, right? It's our
Yeah.
generation. I grew up
Hmm.
with Mac. I worked at Mac. It's my origin story. It's how I learned how to really finesse and really learn my all of my best skills, I feel like, as a makeup artist. And color is a big part of Mac. You know,
Hmm.
inclusivity. Their whole motto is ageless. You know, no races, no ages, and no sexes. You know, that's their
Hmm.
motto. They are the first real inclusive brand. And it's so crazy that Gen Z doesn't see that for them, you know?
Hmm.
It's
And do you
really
know why? Like what was the reason that was given? I'm just
They
curious.
they just don't feel that it speaks to them anymore.
Hmm.
They feel
Mm.
more connected with like a Fenty Beauty or Rare Beauty or Glossier is a big one, you know.
Oh
But
yeah, my daughter
but
was into that for a while. Yeah.
yeah, but Rare
Yeah.
Beauty is like the brand, you know, that
Mhm.
Hmm.
My
they
daughter was
really,
that.
yeah, Selena Gomez's beauty brand is like the brand for like the Gen Zers.
Hmm.
They're obsessed with it. And it's funny because I'm like, no offense to Selena Gomez, no offense to any beauty brand, but Mac has already recreated a lot of what we all made. We've all made a lot of the products that Mac has made already, you know.
Hmm.
The
And so
OG.
it's just, yeah, they're the OG. You have to give
Mhm.
respect where respect is
Oh yeah.
due, and it's inspired brands like me to exist. So you know,
Mhm.
that's my whole thing, is to really embolden my customer to play still, to never be shy, and just always, you know, feel like you could be your true authentic self always.
Mm, that's so interesting. Like I know that Susan's just sitting there just because everything that you're saying is so on point with really how we do our coaching, whether it's one-on-one or in the locker rooms, of leading from a place of authenticity and being able to see the unique value that you bring, and that when you actually can go out in the world in that way is when you will have the most impact and influence. So Susan, I'll turn it over to you now because I know you're very patiently waiting here to
I'm just
dig in.
I'm just smiling from ear to ear and glowing from the level of consciousness that's coming out of her mouth right now that
Mm,
so deeply resonates with my soul. This is like everybody listening knows my backstory in terms of all the flack I got coming into this space as a young female leader. What are you doing in the leadership space and running a business and all of this? And you know, like the biggest thing I got pushback on is like, you really let it all hang out, don't you? And I'm like, you're welcome. I'm giving you permission to let it all hang out, because when you're channeling like you are today on this
Mhm.
mic, ain't
Mhm.
nothing but truth coming through these airwaves. And I know I know about leadership. Leadership is about influence and trust. And like,
Yeah.
hello, people aren't going to trust you as the leader on a mic if you're not channeling that truth.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so inspiring, this level of consciousness that you're preaching on. And I feel like it is what the world needs more than it has ever needed in this moment of history. It is not lost on me that souls like ours have mics to let it all hang out. But
Yes.
that's the place where I want to actually officially mic drop it. It's for all of our listeners out there. They're like, I want to be in that level of self-authorization too. How do I get there? You know, we've been talking about Louise Hay, and I think Esther Hicks is the name you were looking for. So,
Esther Hicks. Yes. Thank
yeah,
you.
girl, I got
Yes.
all those same books, you know.
Yes. Yes.
But I do just want to boil it all down to one big takeaway for our listeners who are listening and so vibing and resonating with everything that they're hearing today in terms of what true modern day leadership looks like, sounds like, and feels like. Where would you recommend that they get that journey started?
Well, the journey starts with you. Journaling is a really good way to like see where you are, like where are you mentally right now? Let's write down all of the pros and cons that you're dealing with in life, before you even go on this entrepreneurial journey. Because, when I started the brand, it's like you get the idea to do it, but you have to figure it out, like how to get there, who the manufacturer is. But before you, like, I think so many people want to have a product instantly, but what problem are you solving first, And so for me, it starts with pen and paper. That's where I really always like get my most inspiration from. What leads me to being a leader is me writing out and mapping out steps. Not to bring it back to sports, but again, you have to know plays. You have to, and this goes for not just, athletes, but dancers too, who are athletes as well in a different type of way, like people who dance, people who are any type of training, you're in this space to train, you have a map, you have a plan. And so that's your first game point. And once you have your plan mapped out, then you start looking for resources, information, circles, groups, communities. There are places like Entreprenista League. They're an amazing network of female founders, and they have thousands of people who are part of their league. There are other organizations out there. Fund Women, I Fund Women. Is another one, but you can always just find a community, like if you're a makeup artist, the Makeup Show is a beautiful community. If you have a beauty brand or a makeup or a beauty educator and trying to find a space, trying to find leadership, trying to find more education, more guidance, leveling up in your career. But just look into your basic circle of where you're trying to be. And if you're like some people, they've literally said, I know how to do everything. You get a lot of younger people in their 20s who have learned through chat GPT, let's be honest, how to do everything. And they're good at it. They're really good at AI technology and social media management, and then doing a little makeup on the side, and then being an influencer and doing this and this and that. And so how do they
Pick a lane.
elevate, yeah, how do they like elevate that, and become an actual leader too? It's hard to do that when you're a jack of all trades and a master of
Right.
none. So you have to hone in and figure out like, okay, I may make monetarily, all these ways of making money, but I take this way the most serious. And this is the way that I want to be aligned, in the universe, to be, put with the right people, right places, right situations that are going to fan my flames. These are like my talk to myself, And so find what words work for you. Mirroring work works amazing. I teach my kids that all the time. Look in the mirror, talk to yourself. That's a really a hard step for people who have self-love issues. So just learning how to just stand in front of the mirror and looking at yourself is a beginning, and then work your way into talking to yourself. And people may think you're crazy, but I've gained the most amazing, brilliant ideas by looking at myself, talking in the mirror to myself, because it really just penetrates, deep to your soul level. And then it's like, aha, I figured it out, That's how I work through a lot of life issues, is in the mirror, and on the
Coaching your damn
paper.
self.
Yep, the paper and the mirror are like my two best friends. And then, of course, I listen to podcasts. You guys have great podcasts. There are podcasts out there. that we can listen to give us inspiration. There are books, but there's a plethora of information. There's no reason now to not ignite your inner leader. At whatever level you want that leadership to be at. Maybe you don't want to be a global business leader, and that's fine. Respect. Maybe you just want to be a leader, of your small business right here in the United States, and it's doing really well in Chicago or in St. Louis or Memphis or wherever you're located. And that's great. You have a great local business that's kicking ass. And every leadership level we should be proud of.
Mhm.
That's the other thing, because sometimes that person who has that local business, and I think I'll use the perfect example of Food Network, because, we always know, there's some great diner or dive in, right, that they're going to feature that's in this small town somewhere. And then that one restaurant is like globally famous,
Mhm.
and it's a whole nother level for them. People are coming from around the world to sit and partake and eat at these restaurants. And then you have other restaurants nearby who are now competing with this, and they want to be on diners, drives, and dives. But you have to also accept that what is for you is for you.
Mhm.
And it may not be your moment to be on diners, drives, and dives. And that moment may not happen also for you. And you have to be okay with that. You may end up with that traffic that spills over because the diner, drives in and dives restaurant that everyone's going to is fully booked. It's fully
Yeah.
Mhm.
packed.
Mhm.
And
That's
now,
such an abundance mindset
yeah.
right there,
Oh
showing
my
up.
Yeah,
gosh,
I
it
Yeah.
agree.
it happened. It literally happened to my husband and I. We were in Nyack, New York, and a restaurant we looked up that had all these write-ups, and we were like, "Yeah, we're gonna go there." Had a rooftop. Ooh, it's sexy. And we get there, and the reservation was like 2, 3 hours, and we're like, "What?" But we're starving, and it's like 9 o'clock, and we already drove up here. It's already been a headache, and we went to the bar right next door, which was like it was literally, I think, called like the bar next door or something like that. And we had the best damn meal, and it was amazing. And you can tell that they get that spillover, and that
Mhm.
Mhm.
spillover makes you grow too. You will get your growth in your timing.
I love that. So many amazing messages and everything that you said today.
Yeah, I definitely think that this is one that is going to be spread far and wide amongst our crowd.
Mhm.
Ashunta, I know people are going to want to connect with you, girl. If anybody out there listening is eager to hear more or ask you any questions, where would the best place be to reach you?
People can follow me on my Instagram at Ashunta Sharif. The beauty brand is at Ashunta Sharif Beauty, and it's pretty much like that for TikTok. Ashunta Sharif Beauty, the same as well.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for coming in and preaching on this mic. That's right. I'm calling it preaching because this was like one of the most inspirational interviews we've had all
Mhm.
year. We are so grateful for you coming and sharing your expertise and all these fun stories in your back pocket. I totally resonate with that. This is how we actually adopt new empowering beliefs the best, right? In terms of the mindset aspect of our work, right, Leanne? Any
Mhm.
final words for our folks from you today?
Well, I really resonated with what you were saying around leadership and self-acceptance because in my coaching over the years, this has just been such a huge thing that's so difficult for women, to be able to get to that place, and I would include myself, in that list, and it's just it goes so deep when you don't understand strategies for self-acceptance. And you talked about some of yours in terms of being in front of the mirror, also the paper and different things. And I think, when we don't have strategies like that as women, that is when we kind of get hooked into self-talk and self-criticism and rejecting ourselves. And that over time whittles away any confidence that we would have. And so I think I would leave our listeners with what an inspiration to hear your story and to be really have it hit home that there, in fact, there are strategies and you pick them up and you work with them and they work, right? And
Thank
that
you.
is, yeah, and that is an ongoing dynamic process where you put in the work and you get on the other side of it confidence, abundance framework, like all of these things that you've talked about. I just think, yeah, you're a leader in terms of doing the work and being able to pull out the insights and use those going forward. So amazing. I'm very inspired. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you guys so much. And if anyone wants to shop our brand, they can always visit us at ashuntabeauty.com as well.
I love it. So
Awesome.
everybody's definitely going to be checking you out over there.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's where I want to land this plane. You know, people were looking at me sideways when I came into this industry and started talking about my relationship with self as being the foundation for anything high performance, but especially leadership. We refer to that as self-leadership. And this is also where Leanne and I get the side eye or confused look when we come into these corporate locker rooms and we say, we're not here to talk about how you're going to lead your people. We're here to talk about how you're going to lead your damn self. And yeah, maybe that starts by looking yourself in the mirror and having a real, honest, vulnerable conversation with yourself.
Yeah.
That is absolutely the entry point into this whole conscious leadership that we've been talking just a little bit about today, right? Is like really expanding our self-awareness for the purposes of deepening thy self-knowledge, because to me, it's so tragic that only 1/3 of adults get to this stage of the maturation process known as self-authorization. And so this is, I think, where stepping into our power and really, you know, so that we can empower these future generations coming up behind us begins. So I definitely think that that is the impact that will be felt by our audience today listening to this interview. Ladies, thank you so much. This is what I love about the ladies in the leadership locker room space. We are nothing but flow and collaboration in our intuition. This was so much fun and brought me so much joy. Thank you everyone for listening. You are the inspiration behind it all for us, and we'll see you all next week.